Hi, welcome to We Three Read. I'm Sarah, and I love a theme. The theme I want to talk about is Star Trek. I love Star Trek. I even have Star Trek lipstick. I thought I would talk about all the Star Trek books that I've been reading or have read in the past that I love. The most recent Star Trek book I read was fan fiction by Brent Spiner. Brent Spiner played Data in Star Trek The Next Generation, which is my Trek. There's so many good Star Trek shows on right now, and so he also reprised his role in Star Trek Picard. He wrote fan fiction, which is a memoir, which is just so funny, inspired by true life events. So it's a little bit noir and a little bit memoir, but not really. I loved reading this. I love Brent Spiner. I loved Data, and you definitely hear Brent Spiner in this book. I've heard him at conventions and watched interviews, and you definitely hear Brent Spiner in this book. He has a very good sense of humor, and the only thing I wish is I kind of wish I knew what was true in the book and what wasn't. So it's a tale about when he was on Star Trek. A lot of it is when he was on Star Trek, and it talks about his experiences, but you don't know what's true and what's not, because intertwined in this, there's some things that are obviously fiction. That's the noir part, but it could kind of be based on real stuff, but I don't know what's based on real stuff. So I would kind of like to know. And also I would totally be interested in reading a actual Brent Spiner memoir, because I want to know about his experiences making Star Trek and everything else that he's done. 1776 and Sunday in the Park with George. I love musicals, so I'd love to hear about his musicals experience. So this was a very fun take on a memoir, but it left me a little aggravated because I wanted to know what was true, and there were obvious things that weren't true, but there's things I'm not 100% sure of. So I would definitely recommend reading it. It's entertaining. That's fan fiction, memoir, inspired by true events. I just want to talk about the first Star Trek book I ever read before I move on to another new book. And this book is Imzadi. I read this in the 90s. It was the first Star Trek book I ever read. It's what got me started reading Star Trek novels. This is one I will always hold on to because I loved this story. It's a little sappy. When we first see Troy and Riker in Star Trek The Next Generation, Troy refers to Riker as Imzadi. And when you're watching the show, you kind of think, what does that mean? This tells you exactly what that means. It tells you how they met and what Imzadi is. And this is just very nostalgic for me. It's a cute read. When I was a teenager and read this, I loved it. I loved them as a couple. I just thought it was such a good read. And every once in a while, when I just want to read something fun, I'll pick it up to reread again. The next two books I want to share aren't necessarily books you sit down and read. They're not novels. They're more coffee table type books. And the first one is The Wisdom of Picard. It has different quotes Jean-Luc Picard has said in shows and movies, and it's organized by theme. So each chapter is a different theme. The first one's philosophy and humanity. The second one is history and science. The third one is literature and the arts. The fourth, exploration and adventure. The fifth, politics, leadership, and diplomacy. And the pages are not very fancy, but there are some that do have pictures of scenes from the shows. And so that's fun. And then it's always good just to remember what Picard has said, because he is full of wisdom. The other book that is not a novel that I love to read is Star Trek Vault, 40 Years from the Archives. So obviously this is a little older because it's 40 years of Star Trek, but it is a beautiful, beautiful book. It has a chapter for each of the series up to Enterprise. plus a chapter for the original series movies and a chapter for the Next Generation movies. So obviously you're not going to get your newer Lower Decks, Picard, Discovery in here, but so much information and so much beautiful, beautiful artwork and photography in this book. It is beautiful and then also interesting to read. I love just going to this book every once in a while, opening a few pages and reading about a particular series or a particular movie, and you're remembering it, or after I rewatch a movie or an episode, going to this book and looking and reading about it. The next book I want to talk about is only kind of about Star Trek. It's Makeup Man, and it's about Michael Westmore. He is a makeup artist, and what I know him from is doing makeup on Star Trek. He was at a Star Trek convention I was at once, and I was able to listen to him speak at a panel, and I love him. I love the makeup jobs he did. I love the aliens he came up with. I think he's amazing, and so I was very interested in reading this book. Of course, there's things in here that aren't about Star Trek. He has done so much, and his family, the Westmores, they just have this makeup empire in Hollywood. And so he's done so much work besides Star Trek, but I, of course, really enjoyed reading about the Star Trek aspects in this book. I also watched Michael Westmore on Face Off, which was a makeup challenge show, TV show, and I really enjoyed that show because I enjoy makeup like this. I wish I had that talent. I don't even wear regular makeup, but if I did, I would take the tips from Michael Westmore, because in the book he actually has tips on beauty makeup as well. There's some great pictures in this book of the work he's done. I kind of wish there was a few more, but it was amazing to see details of the work that he did and kind of like the progression or the steps of that makeup. So what was even more interesting than the pictures and reading were these plans of how to do this certain kind of makeup. So this is from Rocky, and you can see the plans of the makeup that he was going to do on Rocky. And there's a few of these throughout the book that are very informative. So here's one from Star Trek, and this is just so interesting to me. You can see the amount of detail, the amount of thought that goes into all of these, the makeup that's done, and developing the characters. And just the detail on an ear is just crazy. So I really enjoyed this book, and I'd recommend it to anybody who wants to learn more about the makeup industry in Hollywood. There's a lot of name dropping in here. He's met so many people. I recommend it for anybody that likes Star Trek. I just think it was a great book to read. So I'd really quick like to talk about some Star Trek kids books, and yes, I do own an Enterprise plush that makes noise. It's amazing. The first kids book I'd like to talk about is Search for Spock. I'm not actually sure this one's written for kids, because the adults I've shown it to are the ones that find it hilarious, because they get the wordplay in the title and the scenes that are super hilarious in this. It is a Where's Waldo book, but for Star Trek, and it is fun and funny. Some finding Spock is easier than others, but this is great fun. Next, I want to talk about Little Golden books. Aria loves Little Golden books, and the first Star Trek Little Golden book that we owned was I Am Mr. Spock. I bought this one first because Mr. Spock is one of my favorite characters, and I wanted Aria to learn a little bit more about him. Such a good little cute book about Spock. Great introduction to the character. Then we went to a Star Trek exhibit at the Scarborough Cultural Center in LA, and there we bought 3 more Little Golden books because Aria really, really wanted them, and I'm really, really trying to encourage reading, and I thought these were great books as well to add to her Little Golden book collection. Thank you for watching my video all about Star Trek books. I know there's so many more Star Trek books out there. I've read more. These are just some of my favorites, or the ones I've read recently, and I wanted to share them with you. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.
Transfer complete.